Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Jeremy Smith, Photo Talk Jay the Great. Today we're going to be looking at yet another camera, of course. Frankly though, this is a camera that I didn't think that we were going to get an opportunity to look at because honestly I didn't think we'd actually have access to it. But since we did, I thought, well, we might as well look at it, especially given one of the cameras we just looked at a few videos back. This camera is the Nikon Coolpix A. If you remember the Sony RX100 we just got finished looking at, this camera, I think I actually mentioned this camera in that review. This one right here is a very similar type camera. It's a more, well, it's a point-and-shoot camera still technically, but it's designed to give you image quality similar to what you would have on a DSLR, and it's designed to give you lots of manual controls for advanced users. However, unlike the RX100, this camera has a larger image sensor. So we kind of talked a little bit in the RX100 video about how sensor size is a direct, it has a direct effect on the cost of the camera. So I said something like the Canon PowerShot S110, which has a sensor that's just slightly larger than a point and shoot, retails for about $450 right now here in the US. The Sony RX100, which is a 1-inch sensor, which is basically the same sensor size as what you'd find in a Nikon 1 mirrorless camera. That camera retails for a USD price of $649, and this camera, since it has a APS-C size sensor, which is which is pretty much what any non-full frame DSLR is going to have at this point. This camera retails for a USD price of $10.99, so this is definitely not an inexpensive camera. And of course there's a lot of debate about that, but anyways, we'll get to that in a moment. Some of the things I like about this camera is the fact that Nikon is now continuing this new tradition they have of cameras without anti-aliasing filters. So once again, like the D800E and also like the new D7100 we just looked at, this camera has no low pass filter, so basically you're going to get maximum sharpness out of it. There's a few other things about this camera that we'll look at in detail. There's a lot of debate about this, and I want to kind of touch on this before we look at the close-ups on this camera. A lot of people are saying, why would you spend this much money on a point-and-shoot camera? You could buy a DSLR for that cost. And that's true. That's absolutely true. If you are the type of person that demands more control in your images, if you want to be able to change different lenses, if you want to aspire to be a professional photographer, by all means get a DSLR. However, if you have higher end pro DSLR equipment already, and as I said in the RX100 video, we don't always want to carry around a DSLR. But if you still, if you get really hooked on that image quality and you don't want to carry around something very large all the time, that's basically where this camera comes in. It is a very niche crowd, but I still think a camera like this has a place in the market. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at this in closer detail, and I'll go over more of the specifications for you. Okay, so taking a closer look at it, see, there it is right there. Told you guys it had a nice shiny DX sticker on it. So yeah, that indicates the DX sensor. It has a fixed lens design, and I think so far that's been the most controversial topic about this camera, is the fact that it's not, some sort of zoom. The Sony RX100 we looked at, it's like a 28-100 lens, and of course it started out on that camera at f1.8 and ended up a little bit north of f4.5, on the telephoto end. This camera is of course a fixed 28mm lens, effective focal length, and of course it's a f-stop of 2.8. It would have been nice to have a little bit brighter lens, I agree, like maybe an f2 or something along those lines. However, because this camera has a larger sensor, the need to have a f2 or f1.8 lens is not quite as great, just because the camera is going to be able to do better at high ISO. I'm definitely not saying that that completely negates the need for a faster lens, but it definitely kind of balances out. So anyways, just kind of my take on it. The fixed lens, definitely a subject of, you know, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that like that and a lot of people that hate that. But then again, on a camera like this, it's very clear that at its price point and with its feature set, it's not the sort of camera that the average person looking for a point and shoot is going to buy anyway. So I think that having a fixed focal length lens on this is actually a really nice thing. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. I'll go ahead and power her on here. Little toggle type device there, and the lens extends a bit. Okay, if we take a look at this, we'll take a look at the side here first. One of the first things I noticed about this camera whenever I took it out of the box is its nice feel. Of course, it's a metal bodied camera, so it's almost like picking up, you know, it's almost like picking up a mini D7100 or something. You know, I mean, it's a very substantial feel to it. Well, heck, actually, you could say it's like picking up a mini D800 because you know, it's solid metal. Very nice feel. It's what one would expect on a camera at this price point. On the side right here, you have a physical switch for your focus modes, which is very nice. So you've got, of course, just regular autofocus. You've got the macro mode, and then you've got manual focus there. Right here, you've got the connection for your GPS module or your remote control, and then your USB jack. So this is the same type of connection for remote that you would find on like a Nikon D90 or D7000 or D7100 or D600. So a very standard Nikon remote jack. And of course it'll also take Nikon's GPS module. And then of course below this you've got a proprietary type USB connection, which is the same type that you'd see on like a D7200 or something like that. And this USB port is compatible with Nikon's WU1A wireless adapter. I did a video on that quite some time ago. You guys should go and check it out. I need to update that video and show you guys how it works with the iOS. But anyways, so it does work with that. You've got the standard type Nikon eyelets that you find on the mid-range and higher cameras, which is nice. Looking at the back here, 3-inch LCD, and yes, look at that, it's even made in Japan, like a proper pro-level Nikon body. I do like the control layout on this. It's very much, I mean, once again, it's very much like using a Nikon mid-range DSLR, you know, like a 7100. Let's see here, I've got it on manual right now. So basically you've got a command dial up here, and then you have your command dial right here. So basically how this works is you can go with this dial right here to change your shutter speed. You can see, and of course you can see how that, you can see our meter right here. And then this one right here handles our f-stop. So pretty well thought out design, I'd say. It works pretty well. I definitely like the controls better on this than I did on the RX100, but it's, you know, I didn't particularly find the RX100 controls to be bad either. Over on this side of the camera we've got other things like our exposure compensation. So in traditional Nikon style, it's a press of a button. Well, actually that won't work in manual. But if we were in, let's say we were in aperture priority, for example, here, I can press and hold that, and you can see I can change my exposure compensation like that. If we go back to manual, we can go down to our ISO here. You can see that changes. And look at that, guys. It actually changes in third stops. What do you know? Very nice to see that. And of course zoom in and zoom out. Yeah, I mean it kind of feels like you're using a D7100 but just shrunk down. You also have your little I button down here, which is also another Nikon common button. And of course, it brings up your menu here. Now this looks more like what you'd have on like a Nikon D3200 or one of the entry-level DSLRs. But as you can see, you've got all of your options here. Of course, you can change your image quality. Obviously, you can do RAW on this. And let's see here, then you have your white balance, ISO, your release mode. This actually will do up to 4 frames per second. And so definitely I'm going to have to play with that a little bit. Of course, your self-timer options. And this is the most bizarre thing about this camera. And one of my coworkers, who actually beat me to playing with this camera, at one of our other locations, I talked to him on the phone and he said, you know, it looks like it's really good so far. I took some pictures with it. It looks great. But guess what, Jeremy? You're going to be struggling for like 10 minutes trying to find the video record on this. And he was absolutely right, because I looked all over this camera. And I mean, Nikon is sticking record buttons on everything now. You know, every camera has a record button by its shutter just about these days. And I looked all over it and I thought, man, I knew something was missing. Well, as it turns out, the video option is under the release modes here. How bizarre is that? But anyways, there it is right there. So you actually have to go in there and select video, and then when you hit the shutter button, it actually starts recording like that. So I thought that was really, really strange. Once you know where it is, I guess it's no big deal, but I just found that very, very bizarre that they would put that there. But anyways, going on past that, autofocus modes, you've got full-time servo and single servo. Speaking of autofocus, so that brings me to yet another point. Of course, a DSLR uses phase detect autofocus, and mirrorless cameras like the J1 use a hybrid of contrast detect and phase detect focus. So that's, you know, basically a mirrorless camera or DSLR is going to have the advantage in terms of focusing. This uses contrast detect focusing, so it's going to be like a traditional point and shoot. So far, it seems to work really well. As I use this camera more, I'll kind of report back on that, but that's definitely something that's noteworthy. It would have been awesome if they'd put like a focusing system like the J1 in this, but I can kind of see why they did. The upside to this is, as I mentioned, it does seem to be very fast so far. Then you've got your AF area mode here. So once again, this looks like what you'd find on a Nikon point and shoot, option-wise. It's not like the one you'd find on a DSLR or mirrorless camera. So you've got your phase detection, wide area AF, normal, and then subject tracking there. Metering mode's there. Active D-lighting, pretty standard Nikon feature. You've got your bracketing option, picture controls. You can also do exposure compensation here if you want to, and then you have your flash exposure compensation. So pretty well laid out control setup, I'd say. Nothing stands out to me as, you know, anything, you know, as particularly odd or negative. Well, the video recording is a bit odd, but I suppose once you get used to it, it's not that big of a deal. You do have a standard Nikon hot shoe up here on top, which is nice, and you have a built-in flash right there, which, you know, I mean, it's a built-in flash. The one thing I was disappointed with the flash system on this camera is the fact that there's no option to trigger speed lights remotely. This camera's little brother, the P series camera, shoot, I can't remember the model number. I've got too many numbers in my head. I'll put a little like scrolly thing at the bottom of the video to show you what the model number of that one is. But that camera is about $450. Oh yeah, the P7700, that's it. The P7700 has that commander mode, and that's about a $500 camera. And this one is, you know, over twice the price and has all these awesome features and larger sensor and all that. And so I found it very odd that they didn't put the commander mode on this one, yet they did on the 7700. So I'm not sure what's up with that. If we go into our menus here, you'll see that it looks, once again, it looks very much like a Nikon DSLR. A lot of these options are something that you'd see on one of those. Of course, there's a flash control for built-in flash. Yeah, and I already checked that and got disappointed when I saw no commander mode, but anyways. So pretty standard fare there. You even have the U1 and U2 customizable banks like you do on the on cameras like the D600 and D7100 and 7000. So it's nice to see those on here also. In addition to that, you've got, please ignore my sweaty fingerprints there, guys. Anyways, you've got a customizable function button right here, and then you also have a function button on the back of the camera that can be customized as well. So you've got a lot of different possibilities for control options on this camera. I'm going to be shooting with this a lot more, just like I have been with the RX100, and of course by then Adobe will have some RAW converter updates for us, so we can start looking at some RAW files also. But until then, if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to write me in the comments below. Like the video if you like it, share it, and you guys should do yourself a favor and check me out on Instagram too, at PhotoGrayTheGreat, because on there, in my ADHD-induced fits of excitement, I oftentimes post photographs of new items that I have my hands on that I'm going to review soon. So if you look at that, you'll get a really good idea of what's coming next. But until next time, this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great, signing off. Sorry guys, I forgot one last thing I wanted to show you guys, because I have a feeling someone will probably ask me this. I wanted to show you guys the menu options for video real fast. Most all the new Nikons now do, now do 60 frames a second in 1080i. I just wanted to show you the video options on this camera. That was one of the first things I looked at. And as you'll see on this one, there isn't a 1080 I 60 frame a second option. So on this one, as a matter of fact, on this one, you only have 30 frames a second in 1080p or 720p. So no 60 frame a second option on this one either way. Just one last thing I wanted to point out to you.